First of all, how was the lunch? Did you enjoy the lunch? And I'd like to hear a little bit from you about the conversations that we've had so far. We're halfway through the day, a little more than halfway through the day. What have been some of the aha moments for you today? Anybody want to share something that they've learned today, some aha moment that they've had from us? The people. What else? Any other aha moments from today? Yes, Sue Ellen. Say that one more time with the mic on.
I'll just talk loud.
No, now it's on.
Okay. If you fill a room with people who all have good hearts and good souls, it's magical.
Thank you. Tay, did I see your hand up?
Mine, because I'm an analytical. Mine was that 40 times more likely to OD when they're released from the DOC. I thought that was really kind of interesting and drives home how important treatment is.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to share an aha moment from any of the first three panels? A half an aha moment from anybody? Okay. Thank you. We will ask again at the end of the day and see what our takeaways are from the program today. It is my honor to introduce the next panel, and I am going to also be the moderator for this panel, so I'm actually going to go take my seat and we'll introduce them over there. Okay, so my name is Greg Winship, and I'm the moderator for this panel as we are moving through. This panel is Innovations in Corrections. If I can get my program correct. Innovations in Corrections. It's focusing on how we can bring justice, equity, and especially human dignity into the prisons, right? Let me introduce these people first, or let you introduce yourselves. Go ahead, Amy.
Hello all, I'm Dr. Amy Veith. I am the Clinical Director of the North Dakota Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah Cobb, Director of Rehabilitative Services in North Carolina for Prisons.
And I'm Ann Presythe, Director of Corrections for the state of Missouri.
And I'm Jeff Samuda, and I am the Secretary of Corrections for Kansas.
Thank you all. Anybody want to say anything else about their positions?
I like
anything
mine.
else about you? You like yours?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. It's challenging work.
That too.
Okay. We've got three questions we're going to ask each of these panelists, and I'm going to push them a little bit on what we can do to bring human dignity into our prison systems. Most of you probably know that the United States has less than 5% of the world population, and yet we incarcerate almost 25% of the world's prison population. So 1 in 4 people that are in prison almost are in prison in the United States. If incarceration actually produced safety, then we would have the safest country in human history. But unfortunately, that's not quite the case. A hard look at corrections in the United States says that what we've been doing for much of the past 30 or 40 years hasn't worked the best. That's not to put down any of the corrections departments that are represented today. That's simply saying that we can do things a little bit better, right? And that we're looking for new and innovative ways to be able to supplement what we're already doing so that we can get better results. And so these 4 panelists are I would say leaders in many ways in that field. They are going to tell you about some of the innovative programs that they have going on in their states, what's working for them, and what is happening to bring human dignity into those facilities. So welcome again, and thank you each for being here. So the first question for the panelists today. Please tell us about a program that is innovative, that is progressive, something that you weren't doing 3 years ago before COVID and before everything shut down, that is something that is changing the environment for staff and for residents inside the institution within the Department of Corrections that's bringing human dignity to this field. So, Sarah, would you like to go first on that?
Okay, yes, thanks, Greg. I appreciate that. So I come from North Carolina, where our commissioner, Todd Ishii, is very innovative. We have a lot of new initiatives going on, but there are a couple that come to mind when you asked me this question. So about 5 years ago, actually, we partnered with Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary and Joe Gibbs Racing to Game Plan for Life to bring about the field minister program to North Carolina. And it's already in several states, but it was very new to us. So with that being said, I had the opportunity to witness the first graduation in December. It was very exciting, and we had 24 graduates, a huge hyped up day. It was just a wonderful day, a very good event to be at. And so I've also been working with 4 wardens at the facilities for the deployment locations. So we deployed them between the middle of January to the middle of February. So it is new, it's creative, it's innovative. We're having to write policy to address that. But one of the main things about the field minister program is we wanted to incorporate more peer-to-peer programs and to make sure that some of our offender leaders would be able to mentor and teach and guide some of the other offenders at our locations. So a couple of things that I incorporated into the program was we actually taught them how to, I didn't, but I had staff teach them how to facilitate thinking for a change. Many of you know that is an evidence-based program, cognitive-based interventional program. So I think one of the facilities has already started, so we're very excited that we will actually have residents teaching residents thinking for a change. So I'm very excited about that. And also, we were going to instruct them on how to facilitate father accountability, which is the Nurturing Fathers curriculum. So we haven't been able to do that yet due to COVID. However, our facilitator is willing to go to those 4 locations to teach them on father accountability. So we're looking forward really to see how this rolls out this year. Very excited already about some of the positive feedback at those locations. It's all about changing culture, helping our residents, and ensuring that staff understand what we're doing. And it's all part of we want to make sure that our staff are safe and our residents are safe.
Beautiful. So before, staff members would be teaching Thinking for a Change, and now it's residents to residents.
Yes, at those locations.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
And tell us a little bit about Reaching Out from Within. I've got to plug Reaching Out from Within. We had a conversation just prior to COVID. Tell us a little bit about what Reaching Out from Within is doing, because it's a resident-led program also.
It is. So I will say, let me go back to the field minister program for a minute. When I was at the graduation in December, I had a guy stand up and say, "Hello, Sister Sarah." And I'm like, okay, I know where that's coming from. At Brown Creek, we had started Reaching Out from Within a number of years ago. And so one of the fellows that was in that class graduated from the field minister program with his 4-year degree in pastoral counseling. And we have Mary Ward. Mary's here today, and Mary actually made sure that she had a reference letter for him to ensure that he got in as a field minister for that program. So very exciting to have him on board, and he's going to try to start Reaching Out from Within at the facility he's now housed at. So Reaching Out from Within, we started, I guess, in 2013 at Brown Creek, which is now Anson. Yes, I wanted to say Lanesboro too, so sorry. We've changed names a few times. So we have it at Anson, and I want to give a shout out to Anson. They are online today, I think, with some of the staff and residents. And also at Craven Correctional, which is a diagnostic location, we had Reaching Out from Within there as well, and at Hyde. And so you can tell that the guys, they are very proud to be in the program, although COVID, slightly held us up some over the last couple of years. But you and I and Sue Ellen met and Mary met a couple of years ago right before COVID hit. We were planning an expansion. COVID hit, we had to halt. And then in July or August, we had an expansion virtual session where we had a lot of facilities that were interested online. And that's the virtual world now due to COVID. So we had a lot of folks online, and we have 7 or 8 facilities that are interested in beginning reaching out from within, which we truly believe will help change the culture of our facilities as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Ann, tell us what's going on in Missouri.
Thank you, Greg. It's exciting to be here. So what I'm going to talk about is a little bit different than specific to the resident population, the people we serve. We have focused for the last 5 years in Missouri on true cultural transformation of our staff. Because if I do everything I can to change the environment for the offender population within, but I haven't trained my staff to treat each other well and to respect each other, how in the world are staff going to help the people we serve be better people and be ready to come out to the community? They're not. And that is no easy feat. We are a workforce of over 10,000 staff in the state of Missouri. We have 24,000 people incarcerated and about 60,000 under community supervision. So we have started what we call the Corrections Way, and it's our foundation for the way we operate, the way we talk to each other, up the chain, down the chain, around the chain. And we are entering into the phase of where we've done this for 5 years. Our retention is improving. COVID really knocked us on our ass when it came to staff. We are like the rest of the country. We are short-staffed in this business. So in order to get people in the door, how do we keep them in the door? And so that's really where our efforts, I think, are starting to pay off. And so now we've got people poised to treat each other better in the workplace. So now how do we begin to interact with the people that we serve on a better level? The things that you heard in the panel before us, how can these people have a chance at feeling value and self-worth if the people working for me aren't helping to encourage that? How can we give the people who are coming out a future and something to hope for if they don't have anything to hope for while they're inside with us? That's where staff, and there are over almost 500,000 people in the United States that work inside our prison facilities and work in the community. So that's a large number of people. And so that's really what we've focused on. We've focused on communication styles, recognizing that 75% of the people around us don't talk like we do. We have taught our staff how to value each other, not just appreciate, but value. How you really get people to understand the importance of the task they did and what that means to a safer workplace. We work on difficult conversations and how to have those appropriately, so that it's not personal, it's business. Those are skills that are going to translate into conduct violations with the populations we serve. And so it's those kind of basics that you would expect in a workforce. Everybody would have them. But what we come to find out is in many workforces, not just corrections alone, a lot of people don't have them. And it's just as important. And we also promote in our department, and I've said this from the beginning, where is it written? Where is it written that people cannot be happy working inside a correctional facility? It is a dynamic environment because there's one side that is very, very dangerous at any given moment. But that is a small number compared to the side of the people who are just trying to do their time, get out, go home, and be productive, return to their families and be better citizens. And our staff have been so tainted for so long. You said it, for 30, 40 years, it's not working. And we've really got to begin to look differently, but staff are going to have to make the change first.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you for the work you're doing. Jeff, what's going on in Kansas?
Thanks, Greg. Good to see all of you here this afternoon. So some of what Ann touched upon is what I'm going to touch upon, not at length. We believe that environment matters, both the physical plant environment, the surroundings, and the culture. And part of that culture is staff, how they interact with our residents, and vice versa. and really that relationship that we have with them. But the part that's equally important is that that physical environment. What it looks like. Prison doesn't have to be harsh to be successful in what it's intended for, I don't believe. So we're working on making it less harsh, making it more normalized, making it an environment where people are more open to change. I think when it's too harsh, too punitive, it's viewed as just a punishment and not an opportunity to change. People are less willing to change, and if we don't have those cultural barriers broken down, they're not going to be willing to change or take advantage of the opportunities. We don't get anywhere, or hardly anywhere, with any of our population if we don't have a well-trained, experienced, and motivated staff. And staff are motivated by their environment and how we interact with them, and so on and so forth. So a couple of specific examples to both. We have a couple of renovation projects that are going to come online in the fall of this year. One is at our Winfield Correctional Facility, which is a minimum, but this is going to be a medium unit, and we have an opportunity to bring on about 240 beds that used to be an assisted living unit for the veterans here in Kansas, and we're going to take that over, renovate it a little bit, and put our geriatric and cognitive care males in that. We have a real need for both those populations. Get them out of general population and put them there. And we're going to keep that looking and operating much like an assisted living environment versus prisoning it up a little bit. Is that a word, prisoning? Prisoning it up a little bit. And so we're really excited about that opportunity. Then we're going to renovate a unit at our Lansing facility to make it about 200 beds of substance abuse treatment. And we're going to probably do a little bit of a work release out of there as well, still trying to figure that out. But in the design of both of those units, and I'll just talk to the one at Lansing right now, we're paying particular attention to, the colors, the flooring, the ventilation, the lighting, the furnishings, the bedding, all of that, and making it more normalized, making it a better environment where people are comfortable and more open to change. And then Ann said it very well about the staff being maybe first or certainly right there as you're moving forward. How we interact with our population is a game changer. And labels are important. We have labels in our professional and personal lives. People call us different things, and I think most of us find that important. We're changing some of our terminology, changing how we refer to our population. You've heard me refer to them as residents here in my time speaking. In my career, they've been prisoners, inmates, offenders, convicts, all that. We call them residents, not because it should be important to us, but it's important to them, and it's important to their families, and it really shows that we're trying to establish that relationship to help them change. So those are some of the things that we're doing. Some of the things we're doing.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Jeff. From an inside perspective, I know that using the term resident or some such term instead of some of the other more derogatory terms has a huge impact on people, the way that they see themselves and the way that they are motivated to do something when they get out. So I applaud you for that. Thank you for those changes. Amy, tell us what's going on. You've got a lot of good things going on in North Dakota. Tell us some of the things that are going on up there.
Thank you. So I would say probably for the last 10 years, if not longer, North Dakota has made some substantial changes throughout our corrections environment, even going so far as to add the word rehabilitation into our title. So we're now the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, just acknowledging the fact that that's an extremely important part of the work we do. It is the work we do. So when I was thinking about this question and what I would like to highlight, we have two programs currently that we are attempting to launch at basically the same time thanks to COVID, but at 2 different facilities. So one of the things that I think we can all know and agree to is that there is a large-scale incarceration problem in the United States. And in acknowledging that, we also have to acknowledge that this incarceration rate disproportionately impacts our communities of color and how we have treated those communities throughout our history. So in addressing that, as well as to acknowledge the fact that within our prison systems, we have a large amount of trauma. We heard earlier today talking about the ACEs. It's endemic in all of our prisons, the amount of trauma that our residents have experienced and continue to experience even upon their release. And so to target those 2 specific areas, we have started working with a group out of Alaska, the South Central Foundation. They are coming into our medium security facility in our Jamestown location to help us open what we termed the Nuiju program. So this program is faith-based, but it comes through interaction and engagement with our local tribes. So we have 5 local tribes in the state of North Dakota that are recognized. And so in partnership with them, we are opening a specific unit for residents where the entire therapeutic community is based around indigenous traditional cultural practices, healing practices, engagement with re-engagement with their histories and their cultural values. And so it's not a program that's limited, obviously, to our indigenous population, but that is the basis of it. It is a 12-month program. We are redesigning one of the floors in our prison to be utilized for this purpose. So there'll definitely be some talk about, color, lighting, different types of furniture, the way that the dorms themselves are set up, all of that's going to come into play. So that's our medium security offering at this point. In our maximum security facility out of Bismarck, we have partnered with Vera and Milpa to open a Restoring Promise unit. And in doing so, COVID stalled us out for about 2 years. So we just did actually open the unit to full functionality this past month. So our residents have moved in to what we term the Unity Village. It's focused entirely on restorative justice practices. We look at cultural healing. We work with our residents very closely and include mentors in the program. So the program itself has 14 mentors currently, and these are residents who are 26 years of age or older, or who have very long prison sentences. And so they go through extensive training through the Vera Institute to be able to aid their younger counterparts. So those residents from 18 to 25 years who tend to struggle within the system, who spend a lot of time in segregation, who are consistently receiving, traditional incident report sanctions, those things. And so we're building that community. It is built now and running currently. One of the major changes within this community is, since it is focused on restorative justice practices, the typical sanctions and incident reports that are associated with the correctional environment don't apply to this unit. So if there are fights, if there are assaults, if there's substance use within the Unity Village, that's dealt with by the community that lives there, and using restorative practices that better fit the incident that occurred as opposed to our traditional sanctions.
Thank you. Please. As a restorative justice practitioner, you're speaking my language here, so I appreciate that. And we're doing some good things here in Missouri, too, with that. Next question. So besides COVID and understaffing, which I think equally affects all of us, or at least proportionally affects each of us in our departments, what's another challenge? What's something that is challenging that has either kept you or hindered you in some ways from implementing some of the programs you just talked about? What is it that is your biggest X factor that won't let us do this faster, bigger, better, more urgently? Ann, let's start with you.
So, I mean, it's, I'll just go ahead and be honest. It's interesting you keep saying before COVID because for us, we've continued to operate. We haven't had a choice whether it was COVID or not COVID or before COVID or after COVID. It just is. And I applaud my staff tremendously because they continued to make things happen that other people traditionally came in and did. They were the ones that did it. The staffing is now the new issue, but the challenge for us with the corrections way and with thinking about how we're going to begin to do different with the population, I think it boils down to one word, and that's trust. And staff are going to have to find a way to trust that this is going to ultimately make the workplace safer for them. But then the population we serve, they're going to have to trust that staff are trying to do the right thing. And they're going to have to cut them a break too. It's going to go both ways. And so I think the other issue, as I'm saying this, that comes to mind is the communication. And you know, I'm one person in Jefferson City. I've got my wardens here from a couple of my institutions. They're the leaders of their institutions, so how they communicate the message with their staff. Sue Ellen, it's opportunities like this that our staff, especially being able to attend virtually, are seeing that nationally we're all saying the same thing. We're just trying to figure out how do we make it happen. So this opportunity really helps my people from Chillicothe and Maryville and the most extreme parts of the state and Bowling Green and Western Reception. I mean, it just helps you be able to see that other places are trying these things too, and it's not just the quirky gal in Jefferson City that's got a new idea.
Exactly.
You know, so I mean, I think trust, communication, those are constant challenges, but we're just going to have to find a way to begin to bite the elephant one bite at a time.
Yes, yes. And don't forget T.C. Casey in Kansas City.
And T.C. Casey, sorry. Y'all already got your big shout out. I'm so proud of that.
There was a commission on violent crime that was a number of years ago, and they published top 15 findings. They interviewed people from all 50 states, published their top 15 findings. And one of the top 15 findings that stood out to me was that we needed to change the mentality in corrections from this us versus them mentality that was this combative relationship to one of working together and building relationships. And I see the beginning of that happening in a lot of these programs that you're talking about. That actually makes our communities inside the prisons safer by building these relationships and having the interaction that is productive and cooperative rather than this hostile environment inside the prison. And they also said that that carried over to our communities because once they got out, they kept that mentality. And so it translated to other people in the community. So I applaud you, each of you, for what you're doing in that field. Jeff.
Yeah, I think that right after COVID, which I hope is on the wane, and our awful staffing patterns, which are a crisis level, really. I don't think that's overstating it. But beyond that, I think it's getting people to understand why make the investment in the population that comes to us and that we're managing into those people. What's the value? What's in it for them? And I think that includes our staff, seeing why we would put money into maybe nicer furnishings or technology for the population, or a substantial investment in education and workforce training. Getting our staff to see that, getting decision makers at a state level to understand why we're doing that, and then really getting the general public to understand. And I think it's getting better, and I think gatherings like this and others are helping people gain a better understanding, and really it benefits everybody. Yes, it benefits that resident who's maybe getting on the right track, getting their substance abuse behind him, dealing with their demons, as somebody mentioned on a previous panel, maybe getting that education that they hadn't gotten when they were in the community, getting some workforce training, learning how to work, getting some resources for when they release. It helps their families, helps turn out someone that's a better person, in a better spot, not so dependent upon them. Maybe they can depend upon, is not going to come back to prison, all that. Benefits our staff, safer environment, more rewarding environment. Our staff, if you stay in corrections, you're staying, a part of you has the heart for the work that we're doing. It's too tough a business to just be there for a paycheck, and quite frankly, oftentimes the paycheck is inadequate. But if you stay in it and you've got the heart for it, you want to see successes. It's what puts the wind in your sails and keeps you going. So certainly our staff benefit from it, and conversely, they see some pretty awful, tragic things that take a toll on them. And then ultimately, it helps our communities. These folks that come out of prison are returning citizens, and they're going to be our neighbors. And what do we want that to look like? And we want a better person. So getting people to understand the value of the investment and what the return on that investment is, I think, one of our biggest challenges.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Showcasing the successes that you mentioned. A forum like this, we're trying to do that in as many ways as possible, and having as many returning citizens participate in this forum, having the people on the inside watch this forum so that they can aspire to be here next year or the year after as one of our panelists, is really important, and I think that sets a good tone. And so often that hasn't happened in the past because people that are successful kind of want to meld into the community and not be seen and not remember the past and not bring it up and have it thrown in their face all the time. And so it's important that we showcase the successes to everybody for those examples. So thank you for bringing that out. Amy.
When I think of one of the biggest challenges specific to the North Dakota system, we have gone through a lot of change in a relatively short period of time. So we have some staff who have been with us for, literal decades, who are very committed to the work, very excited about the work. We're the first ones in line when we start a new project. And so I think part of it is we've done so many new things in such a short amount of time that staff are starting to get almost overwhelmed, especially when COVID delayed everything and then things started all rolling out at the same time. So I think there's some of that. We've also had a fairly significant change in our leadership structure. We have a new director now that's relatively recent. My position, I actually just took over in September of last year, so I'm relatively new in my role. We have, at our facility level, we've had new captains, new lieutenants. Like, a lot of our leadership structure has changed. Our values are the same, our goals are the same. We're still moving forward, but with all that change, it comes making sure that everybody's up to speed on what's going on, making sure that our trainings are happening. When we talk about staffing issues, we have a lot of turnover, and so we get brand new people, off the street coming to work with us, and we have to go through and do all of the additional trainings. We focus our trainings on core correctional practices, so it's very much building that relationship with our residents, making sure that staff understand how much that relationship means and what that can do. And so the constant trainings and changes, I think, have been a bit of a challenge, but we're making it, so that's the good thing.
It sounds like many of the programs that you're doing are making it, so we applaud you with that. Thank you. Sarah, what's going on in North Carolina?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, the folks who are trained to do certain things are having to do other things due to staff shortages. So it's stretching us to the limit sometimes in what we can provide for our residents. For example, our case managers, who are supposed to be providing good correctional case management and guiding and planning and monitoring and motivating, they're having to pull a post or work a shift, go on transportation trips because we have medical needs that take priority. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that's really stretched us a lot would be we really have wanted to provide more technology, innovative things for our residents to do. So we all know that increased use of technology can cause other things to happen, and our staff are a little bit wary of, okay, so what do you mean he's going to be on a tablet talking to who or doing what? So we have really been stretching our IT section. We were able to have some classes virtual, and one of our biggest success stories was at the women's prison in Raleigh, NCCIW. We had our first personal fitness training class in conjunction with Shaw University. And the TN residents who were enrolled in that class did a lot of that by using the APDS tablets, the American Prison Data System tablets. So we had 9 graduates, and when those ladies get out, they'll be able to have, I think they're given $1,000 worth of personal fitness equipment, and then they can go out and get certified. They had a certificate, but they will be able to be certified to be personal trainers. So that's a good thing, and it's stretched, you know, and it. And so along with the tablets, we're also doing the GTL tablets. And so one of the most exciting things that I'm working on with a group of folks would be implementing a learning management system on the GTL tablets. Eventually, every resident will have a tablet. About 10 of our facilities already have tablets. And so along with that's coming a new learning management system. And there are some free things that will be on there, but we will also be able to expand our partnerships with our community colleges and other post-secondary entities to be able to put some of their curriculums on the learning management system. So those are good things that are coming about, but it's been a little painful. Resources are limited, but we are going to, struggle to keep getting there.
One of the earlier panels said the only good thing to come out of COVID was getting on the other side of it, I think, something to that degree. I think another thing, though, for corrections, COVID has forced us in some ways to be more technologically minded and incorporate technology into the prisons. Before COVID, I don't think we would have had too many Zoom meetings or WebEx meetings inside, and now it's almost the norm in a lot of ways. So applaud you for that also. Thank you. I know that brings some headaches. So we've talked about trying to have can we have a reaching out from within meeting with a volunteer in Missouri zooming into a meeting in North Carolina because we don't have a volunteer in that area. So is that a possibility? And we're exploring some of those things. So some really innovative happenings. Thank you. Finally, last question before we take some from the audience. At the last symposium in 2019, we brought Axel Brimley from Germany, the warden, to talk about the human dignity and how they look at it from a German perspective or a European, Nordic, and Scandinavian perspective. We also kind of talked about what is this human dignity? How do we employ it here? We had Scott Urfey here from the Cheshire prison in Connecticut that shared how they were trying to implement the Vera program at a prison there. There's an African concept called Ubuntu. It conveys the concept that a person is a person through other people. It means I am because you are. It's a way, Desmond Tutu described it this way. His words better than mine. I'm a human being because I belong. I participate, I share. I've had conversations, I think, with each of you about how do we bring this human element, get back to this human element, seeing people as people, whether they're staff or residents in prison. And I'm wondering what each of you are already doing, something that you maybe haven't mentioned yet, or expanding on something that you've mentioned, or something that you'll commit to do. Whether it's as simple as calling people residents instead of offenders. I think it's a simple way. It takes a lot to change policy, right? It takes a lot to be able to get staff trained to be able to do that. But it sounds like something so simple that we ought to be able to do that. And yet 30, 40, 50 years of training says otherwise sometimes. But what is it that you would commit to do today or are committing to do, something you're committing to do to bring human dignity into the prison system in your particular state? Jeff, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. That Desmond Tutu quote, I mean, that, or what was it Desmond Tutu?
Yes, Desmond Tutu.
I mean, I'm from Idaho. You can't be throwing that stuff at me. It's hard for me to keep up.
I'll write it down for you next time. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, email it to me, will you? Anyway, that was great. It was a great quote. I'm not making light of the quote. So, a couple quick things. I think what can go to the human dignity is recognizing the people under our authority as an individual. I think if we do that, and too often we treat them as a group, kind of flock shoot, if you will, recognize the individual, human being, their needs, their strengths, their weaknesses, and then work towards providing assistance to that. So I think that's a way to get to the human dignity point. Couple things maybe I would commit to that we're already doing and we'll just perpetuate. So opportunities to help folks get back on their feet and be successful when they do become that returning citizen. So we have a Pell money is coming back into prisons in a big way. Great opportunity for higher education in our facilities. So we've formed the Kansas Consortium on Higher Education in Kansas. We have 11 colleges that have partnered with us, and we're going to be delivering certified technical education that people can get certified on certain things. They can get an associate, they can get a bachelor's, and really that helps check a very big box to help them on their road to getting back out and being successful. The other part that we have here, and it was here before I came, but we've really put a lot of effort into it, and we'll continue, is our private industry partnerships with the business community, with industry. So that translation from prison back out into the community, that good job and those good work skills are critically important. And I won't steal the thunder. I think you have another group after us that's going to talk about that a little bit. But it's important. It plays a big role in whether they're coming back to prison, whether they can get a job that pays a livable wage. Well, we have great partnerships in Kansas. Some folks in the room here are part of that. And so when we're going to continue to look for opportunities when folks are behind the fences or maybe at a minimum unit going out into the community, for them to develop those work skills and develop some relationships upon their release. And then the last thing, if I could get one thing when I'm out there talking to folks in the community, if I could get people to accept the premise that people are sent to incarceration for punishment, not as punishment. Get that paradigm to shift a little bit. Sending people to prison as punishment hasn't worked for the last couple hundred years. That in and of itself doesn't work. Sending them as punishment and then working on their needs is how we're going to get there and be successful.
That's a great idea. Chief Justice Warren Berger stated that 50 years ago, and we're still trying to implement that. So thank you for bringing that up. How about Amy?
So there's a number of things, I think, moving forward and things that we're still attempting to do. So as you stated, just changing our terminology, using the term resident. We've been doing that for many, many years now. A lot of our training for our staff was focused around the ideas of human dignity and respect, and trying to prepare and give opportunities to normalize the environment that our residents are in. So we have a number of programs that assist with life skills building. We're working right now, we have a program called Free Through Recovery that is connecting our residents when they're on supervision to basically a team of individuals. So they have a primary counselor, they have their parole officer, a care coordinator, a peer support member, all working together to assist with things like housing, to assist with things like finding employment, making sure they're going to appointments, making sure that they have that support so that they can get back on their feet. So we want to continue to expand that. We also want to focus on changing the environment itself. So we're currently in discussion with an architectural firm to discuss some changes, some redesigns to our female facility, to our youth facility, and to our minimum security male facility to help have a better space, a better environment, something that's going to mimic what life would be like in the community, offer opportunities to learn how to do laundry and balance a checkbook and use all of the new technology that's out there for some of our guys who have been incarcerated for a really long time. And then I think, lastly, one of the things that I've heard, throughout today is talking about that need for community support as well. So not only are we wanting to partner with the community to bring them inside so that we have that exposure, that rapport building while the resident is with us, but also externally. And so we've decided, we're exploring some options that if we can't find that where it's already been established, then we'll do it ourselves and we'll expand outside the DOCR to kind of build some of those community resources that are needed. So I think that's probably our biggest focus right now.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It sounds like a lot of good things happening up there. Sarah, North Carolina.
So we want to invest in not only our population's needs, but our staff needs as well, and community. So I can think of a couple of things that we are working on currently that we hope will help with restorative justice concerns. And one of those is partnering with Campbell University Law School. And so this is one of your favorites, okay? So you can come and visit us quite frequently. So we have been working with Campbell University and a partner there who's wonderful to bring in the restorative justice circles to two of our main institutions in North Carolina to get us started. A number of years ago, they did come in, and then you know how the pendulum swings a little bit, and then different administrations want different things, so we had to stop. But they are back in full force, and we support them wholeheartedly. We successfully ran circles in the fall against COVID. I'm sorry to say that, but it's been life for the last 2 years. We successfully ran circles at both Central Prison and NCCIW for women. And so we are getting ready to restart the circles back at Central Prison, and the facility was receptive to not just having one circle, but 3 circles. So we're getting ready to start 3 circles at that huge facility. Also in our conversations, that facility has raised their hands and said that they would pilot what would be a staff initiative and have a circle for staff. So eventually we may be able to incorporate like everybody together, and what we want to do is have a more manageable facility, a more manageable population, but we want to invest and let our staff know exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it and why it's important to do it. Because in the end, it is about safer communities for all of us. And so we just want to educate, plan, coordinate, and make sure that they understand what we're doing. So that's a really exciting initiative that I'm involved in. So I look forward to seeing you there. And one more thing before you, do you want to talk about restorative justice? So,
Go ahead.
Okay. So one more thing I want to talk about that I'm really excited about is it's called FRESH. It's Family Reentry Support and Help. We've targeted 13 of the designated reentry facilities. We're currently actually putting designated staff through a 2.5-hour training on why is it important that we deal with visitation and children coming into visitation in a very humane, good, professional way. And so the work groups that I'm on right now, not only did we participate and work out the training that's being presented, actually we have some training being presented today, but also we will choose residents who have children, and we will do some trauma-informed care for those residents, seeking safety and some other curriculums that we will be working with them on. But also just to make sure that our staff understand that we are able to help the children who are serving that silent sentence when their parent is incarcerated. And also, we hope that the vision will be that we will change or make recommendations to our management team as to how we should do visitation differently going forward in the future to include some child-friendly spaces at those locations. So those are some things we're working on.
That sounds great, and I will be there for the restorative justice work. Believe that. We're working with Michelle Tippy at TCKC in Kansas City to be able to incorporate some of those circles. We've already had staff circles and working on resident circles too, so you are speaking my language. Thank you, thank you. some great activities going on in our correctional departments here that are represented, and I think the future of corrections looks very bright with all of these programs going on. Let's open it up for some questions from the audience. Do we have any questions from people? I'm going to pick Richard back there because I know maybe some of the correctional centers have some questions there. So let's start off back there.
First, Sarah Anson said hello. Second, Angie has a question. She thinks the staff training and some of these programs are great, but she's concerned that non-Christians, religious minorities, non-believers, anyone who's not a Christian is missing out on some of these rehabilitative services. So could some of you please speak to any efforts you have to include those other groups?
I'm not sure that I can totally answer your question, but I can let you know that the field minister program graduated an Islamic offender with his pastoral counseling degree. Does that help some? Okay, gotcha.
And I would say in Missouri that our chaplains provide a wide range of religious accommodations in our facilities. So, what Sarah spoke about was one particular issue. We're doing that in Missouri as well. We're in our second year of that. But just so you know, there's anything, just about anything, any religion, any belief that people wish to pursue, there is available in our institutions.
I would say that's the same in Kansas. Probably in terms of, I think the comment was missing out, there's probably more of a volume of traditional faith-based opportunities in there, and so there might not be as many opportunities, but there's a wide array of opportunities.
I would just echo the same sentiment for North Dakota. There's a variety of programs, and we bring in a lot of spiritual leaders from the community of all different backgrounds, faiths, creeds, belief systems, and none of our programs are exclusionary. So if anybody who doesn't necessarily belong to the Christian faith, they're absolutely included in all of that as well if they're interested.
And I might just add, Reaching Out from Within is a secular program, a non-faith-based program that accepts anyone in their programs also. And that's intentional in that sense. We have a spirituality chapter, but it's for anyone. Another question back here in the middle. Yes.
Yeah, just a couple of small things. You were talking about your language and, changing residents. And I know when we first started that conversation years ago back in North Carolina, we even had an intentional leadership meeting about how we need to be referred to. I did 5.5 years in prison myself. And the first person that stood up, he said, how about people? Yes. Right? He said, how about people? It's good to be a client. It's good to be a resident. He said, how about a person who went to prison and jail? A person formerly incarcerated. Peopleize the language is kind of what we suggest. Also, again, a small thing, returning citizens. I don't know if you know the voting rights for a person when they get out of prison in Kansas, but if you're still on probation and parole, you can't vote. Right. So how do you call yourself a citizen if you can't vote? All right? So we say justice involves people, but not necessarily to vote. Same thing in North Carolina, you can't vote until. We're trying to change that. We filed a lawsuit against the state legislature to do that. And we're still pending that in front of the Court of Appeals. And then finally, a lot of the things that you do can be done internally as far as making changes, but a lot of the things that you're experts on can also be taken to the local government to be changed as policy, all right? So for instance, one of the things we try to do in North Carolina before a person leaves is to help them get their driver's license straight before they even get out, so they don't have to worry about that when they come home, all right? So what's wrong with getting a driver's license van to come to the camp before they leave so they can get their driver's license straight and be in their jacket when they come home? Well, that's a policy decision. That's not necessarily an admin decision. So a lot of the expertise that you have can be used at the policy level, especially around employment, banning the box. If a person check a box, on his application, you don't get a call back. If you don't get a call, you don't have FaceTime to even try to interview with somebody because they never even talk to you, right? So those kinds of things can be also influenced by your knowledge of what you do with local government and policy and city councils and those kinds of things. And then finally, to your point, at Campbell Law School, Sarah, they've also expanded their work through helping people get expungements, their lawyers there. So we're helping that as well with them. So great idea. Thanks.
Thank you. Each of those could be a topic for our next symposium, and we may incorporate some of those. I know there's a lot of other topics we could address. Thank you for those. Those are important topics. Yes, there's one up here. I'm sorry, whoever, go ahead. He already had the mic. I'm sorry, Bibi, we'll come up to you next. Okay.
Speak right on top like that. We heard so much today about progress and caring in so many areas, and it's all wonderful. But the one thing I don't think we heard about was what, if anything, is being done or can be done about the incarceration of so many women who have been beaten and abused physically, resulting in their finally striking back and getting put into prison for many, many years for just defending themselves. Now, I understand that self-defense is legally excusable to many degrees, but that may not always be the case. If someone has been beaten over and over, they may strike back suddenly and not in the heat of the act, which would protect them from incarceration or worse. So and there's a I think there's a large amount of our female imprisoned population there for this reason. And I'm wondering what, if anybody is thinking of doing about that.
So I'll start with that. In Missouri, when I got here in 2017, Missouri had the fastest rate of incarcerating females in the United States. We were putting them in prison faster than anyone. And through our Justice Reinvestment Initiative, we took a long, hard look at why women were coming to prison, and then what could we do to help lower that population and prevent them from coming back. So one of the things that we did, we have 6 community supervision centers in the rural parts of Missouri, and we took the one in the middle part of the state, the Fulton Community Supervision Center, and we converted that to a female-only community supervision center. Now keep in mind, women were served at the other 6 community supervision centers. We had room for 60 people, 8 beds were for women in a small room where the washer and dryer was. So we recognized instantly that's not acceptable, because when women are with men, they're being re-traumatized. They can't get what they need in that environment. So we committed 1 community supervision center to women, and we have seen a lot of success with what's going on there. Our communities are very good to our 2 female institutions across the state. They come in and they shower them with resources and trainings and opportunities to connect to jobs when they come out. We're training our women for the jobs today, not just cosmetology and women-focused jobs, but what are the jobs that are available in the communities where they're going. If it's coding, if it's welding, if it's whatever it may be. But that's what we're doing in Missouri, because, we don't control who comes to us. That's important to remember. And we don't control who leaves us. Those are done by the courts and the parole boards. But what happens when they're with us is where we can have the greatest impact.
Thanks, Ann. Anyone else? Comments?
I'll just echo what Ann said. We don't control the front door or the back door. What we control is when folks are with us. And traditionally, I think corrections has been harder on the female population, certainly than need be, and maybe even harder in some instances than on men. And so we're changing that in Kansas and finding them more opportunities, again, changing the environment, changing the culture, and I think that's the key that we can control.
Thank you. I think we've got time for one more back here.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to really quickly say that I'm not in corrections at all. I just happen upon this event because it's something that I'm interested in, and I think it's. I'm actually in HR technology, and I really appreciate the fact that I'm hearing people in what we call an old industry like corrections talking about the importance of the nuance of language when it comes to shaping real world outcomes, things like changing the word to residents and things of that nature. I did have a question for the panel, but I did also wanted to say something to the gentleman in front of me. When it comes to things like banning the box, I think sometimes companies, I believe in Colorado they did that, and some of our larger companies around the nation are doing things to try to subvert that. So I think we as a population need to kind of take that into our own hands as well, not just depend on local government. We need the help of the local governments, but we are going to have to kind of step up and do some things about that on our own. But then the other question I had is, since this panel was about technology and dignity, what other ways, I know we talked about personal trainers coming out, what other ways are we able to use technology, and do you plan to use technology to benefit residents when they come out? Or can we start having teachers that are not on site teach things like electrical working, and like just what other real world outcomes can we produce through the use of technology?
So I'll just mention that we have a number of initiatives that started up during COVID. We had at Hyde Correctional an agribusiness class that was taught completely virtual. So we are expanding on our 2-year and 4-year degrees for our students, if at all possible, with technology being key. Back a number of years ago, we had the Pathways Initiative, which was a grant that enabled us to equip some facilities with technology, and our IT section has developed what we call the iNet, which is like it's not, staff has their internet, but our students have their internet. So we continue to improve on that capability because we believe success lies in the education of our students who are leaving to go home.
And we have a partnership with State Tech that comes in and teaches industrial electrical wiring. We also do have a launch coding programs. We have several coding programs across our institutions. And oh God, there was one other one. But yeah, we're doing wherever we can find people who want to come in and help teach the skills for today's workforce. We are interested, laying fiber optics, that kind of work too. So, I mean, we are not the corrections from 1960s. We are really trying to branch out to become the system that feeds the workforce today when they come out.
I would add that on a very basic level, just putting technology in the hands of our population. Think how much technology evolves. I mean, it's pretty fast. And if you've been doing time 3, 5, 10 years, boy, you can fall behind. And there's just a lot of catch up and a lot of anxiety associated with, am I going to be able to navigate in the real world? So putting tablets in their hands where they can do their email, do their phones, check their bank balance, all those type things, do learning, distance learning, some searches, whatnot, just helps, again, prepare them better for release.
Hey, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Just echoing a lot of what was already said, all of the residents in North Dakota have a tablet. And in addition to being able to connect with family and friends and have, their mail come through that way, it also provides apps on the tablet itself that gives access to things like mindfulness exercises, a lot of different treatment resources, some, skill building things like, writing a resume, things of that nature, that's right there on the tablet. And that all came through during COVID when we needed to have more of that access. We've also partnered I know a lot of our staff, our case managers, have assisted our residents doing virtual interviews for jobs while they're still with us so that they can get jobs set up before they actually leave us. We've even done some housing interviews that way for different apartments and places that we've been able to partner with. And we also had a large-scale virtual attendance for a career fair that had happened in Fargo, and so it's a fairly large distance from our major city, Fargo, the one that North Dakota has, to the rest of the state. And so being able to do that career fair virtually was helpful, and it really built some of that rapport and interaction with our guys so that they know where to go and they know who those supportive community placements are.
Ann?
Yeah, one thing that I just wanted to add as my commitment to what we're doing is I think there's a lot to be said for the lived experience. And I've never been in prison. I don't know what it's like. My staff that work in facilities have not been in prison. They work in prison, but that is different than being on the other side. And so I think there's a lot of value in us learning from those who have the lived experience, because that's the way that we as leaders are going to be able to make the environment better for the people who are living there. And we have to respect what they bring to the table and what that communication looks like. So that's really where we're headed in Missouri, is trying to pay attention to that overall interaction and realizing that we're in it together and it's really not the us against them anymore.
Thank you, thank you. Carrie, did we have one more? We had one more question, if we can get it in quick.
Yeah, hi, thank you. My name's LaTanya, and I was formerly incarcerated in Topeka Correctional Facility. So brings me to my question that we've all noticed, a clear lack of representation for women in the Topeka Correctional Facility in Kansas, which we're in Kansas. So my question is to Mr. Secretary, where are the people who represent the women at Topeka Correctional Facility besides Miss Marcy Kincaid and that table, but people like myself, my business partner, and other women, which Topeka Correctional Facility is widely represented in the room by women that were incarcerated. And so we'd like to know who, where, what resources are being set aside for the women at Topeka. How can we get involved? Who are they? And when are they coming down the pipeline?
That's a mouthful. So let me see if I can get it for you here. So in terms of being represented, are you mean being represented in terms of the demographics of the staff or just the opportunities?
Opportunities, school, just, you know, clearly because it's a lack of representation up here, it's kind of the same trickle down for everything, I feel.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that I think traditionally, and I know for sure in Kansas, we're pretty hard on our female population, and you live that. So we're changing that. We've got a warden there that's pretty progressive about trying new things, different things, and I'll just touch on one pretty simple but pretty impactful thing. I talked about those prison industry opportunities that we have, the work opportunities. When I came here about 3 years ago, we had like 15 prison industry-based jobs for our women. That was pretty sad. And my predecessors had been trying for years to get another industry in there. With the help of some folks outside the organization, we've tapped into a couple of significant private industry partners. So we went from 15 to today we're over 200 prison industry jobs, and some of those are very well-paying jobs, and those businesses would like our women who are working for them to transition to them, to work for them, and continue that when they work in the community, which is the ideal. So that's one thing we're doing there. It is changing. We're moving it.
Thank you. I could spend the rest of the afternoon up here talking about this panel, but we need to move on. We've got one more panel. Thank you, Amy, Sarah, and Jeff, for your candid conversation, for the things that you're doing to change corrections on the direction that we're going. I appreciate that. We will take a 10-minute break and come back for our last panel of the day that is on workforce development. I think you'll find very interesting.